Welcome everyone to a brand new episode of 3 Wide. I'm your host Radney Crawford. Today we're going to be looking over NASCAR's race weekend where Josh Berry went out and got his first career Cup Series victory, bringing the Wood brothers also their 101st win. And we'll take a look at that win and what that could mean for Josh Berry the rest of the season. Also, we'll look at the action from the Xfinity Series and Truck Series at Las Vegas and take a look ahead at the upcoming race weekend at Homestead-Miami. Hunt to Harvest continues to be a great supporter of this show and a brand that I am proud to represent. You too can represent them by going to hunttoharvest.com and upgrading your hunting apparel. They are fully stocked in their shirts where you can find designs for all different types of hunting. Whether it be deer, duck, or elk, Hunt to Harvest has a shirt for you. They also still have a good selection of rope and 7-panel hats, plus performance polos crafted to keep you cool and dry in any environment. When you're ready to check out, be sure to use the promo code RADNEY18923 for even more savings. And that's RADNEY 18923 at hunttoharvest.com. Now, when you look at the top 10 finishers from Sunday's race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, there are storylines to be found throughout this finishing order, starting with Josh Berry, who got the race win, the first Cup victory of his career, and also the Wood brothers' 101st win. This was also the first non-Hendrick driver to win the Spring Vegas race in the last 4 years. You then had Daniel Suarez finishing in second, finally getting his first top 5 of the season, and this is also back-to-back top 5s for Suarez at Las Vegas. Ryan Preece finished in third, tying his career best finish. Then you had William Byron in fourth. That's now 3 top 5s on the season for Byron, and also 6 top 10s in the last 7 Las Vegas races. Ross Chastain rounded out the top 5, his first top 5 on the season as well, and he only has 1 finish outside the top 15 so far in 2025. Austin Cindric gets a top 10 finish, the second of the year, after 3 disappointing weeks for Cindric. Then Alex Bowman in 7th, his 4th top 10 on the season, tying with teammate William Byron for the most so far. AJ Allmendinger finished in 8th, a quiet top 10 day for AJ Allmendinger, the first of his season. Kyle Larson, he finished in 9th, his 13th Las Vegas top 10, and his 18 career starts here. Chase Elliott rounded out the top 10, his first Las Vegas top 10 since 2022, but still has yet to finish outside the top 20 this year as well. So solid starts for drivers like Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott. Now, of course, the biggest storyline coming out of Las Vegas on Sunday was Josh Berry getting his first career Cup victory and what has been kind of a revival of the Wood brothers as a team. And if you go back and listen to my season preview podcast where I discussed the Wood brothers have been more competitive and relevant in recent years when they've had a veteran driver. You look at their time with Paul Menard and Matt DiBenedetto, in their runs with the team, their average finishes were inside the top 20, and now you see how big a difference it makes compared from Harrison Burton to now Josh Berry. We know how much of a struggle that Wood brothers and Harrison Burton had over the past 3 years. That's not a knock on Harrison Burton. Harrison has the talent to be a star in this series. He won 4 races in the Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing. You now look at his return to the Xfinity Series driving for AM Racing. He has 3 top 10s already on the season with that team, and that's more than any of the 7 drivers they had combined driving for him last year in that car. So Burton obviously has the talent. I think he was just brought up a little too quick into the Cup Series. You add in the next gen car, and that put him even further behind the 8 ball. And sometimes drivers and teams just don't mesh. It just doesn't work out. I think the reason it works out best with Josh Berry and the Wood brothers, as we've seen so far this season, is they're pretty much one and the same. Josh is very much a throwback driver. Now, we know the Wood brothers are obviously the oldest team in NASCAR. They're very much a throwback to the sport. And Josh Berry is a throwback sort of driver where he just wants to go out and race. That's all he's concerned about. But you can see that the speed, the performance of this team has improved so far this year with how he qualified at Daytona before the dual races. He qualified up front at Atlanta and led the second most laps in that race, got a stage win. He did struggle at road courses, which is no surprise there. That's not exactly his strong suit. But at Phoenix, it should have been a wake-up call for all of us to know that this isn't the same Wood brothers from the past 3 years. Josh Berry qualified in 4th and finished in 4th. And it wasn't off of a fluke pit stop or anything like that. He finished in the top 10 in both stages. Then he comes to Las Vegas where he qualifies again in the top 10, gets in a battle for the lead late after a caution, gets it from Daniel Suarez, beats him straight up on speed, and gets the win after pulling away in the last 14 laps. And by then, we will see how legit this team is, if they are for real, Or have they just hit it lucky the past couple weeks and done just the perfect thing to their car to get them in these positions? Looking at how Josh Berry has performed and the speed he's shown throughout the first 5 races this season, especially the super speedways, I have a feeling that when the playoffs start, Josh Berry is going to be sitting with quite a few more playoff points than he has right now. A couple of other top finishers from Las Vegas on Sunday that I want to focus in on is Daniel Suarez, who finally gets a top 5, as I mentioned earlier, after disappointments at Coda, where he had been running in the top 10 most of the day before spinning out, taking out himself and teammate Connor Zilisch. And then last week at Phoenix, another race where he was running in the top 10 for a majority of the race, especially there at the end before his crash with Catherine Legg. Hopefully, this second place finish and being in the thick of things for the race win starts a positive trend for Suarez. And maybe it can quiet those discussions about Connor Zilisch, because you know everyone's talking about it in the NASCAR world. You know Daniel Suarez is hearing the talk of it about basically his car is the one that's waiting for Connor Zilisch to be ready. Suarez has had strong enough runs this year. He's shown enough speed. I could honestly see him getting a win or two this year, maybe turning down the pressure cooker a little bit for at least one more season before Connor Zilisch is ready to go to Cup, because I don't think Connor's ready. It might be one of those moves where you move a guy up too soon. Trackhouse is going to want to take their time and be sure Zilisch is ready before bumping him up. And Suarez has done enough. I mean, I don't see how you could easily kick him out of the seat. Granted, I know Zilisch is looking to be a generational talent, so it's not going to be an easy decision for Trackhouse. Either way, Suarez, I think, is doing enough right now that hopefully he gets that pressure off of him. Then there was Austin Cindric, who also had a change of luck, getting his second top 10 on the year. Really, Cindric is sitting right here, probably should have at least 2 wins if things had fell the right way at Daytona and Atlanta. He's led laps in 4 of the 5 races this season. So the performance for Cindric is picking up, and that's something we saw throughout his runs in the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. The finishes just haven't caught up with how fast the car is yet. Cindric just has been crashed out of a couple races, some of it not of his own making. So Cindric's going to be an interesting driver to watch as we go through this next stretch before the summer. And really what we've seen going on with Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, it seems to be the theme throughout the Cup Series field so far this season. It's just a year of bad luck and drivers who we expected more of in 2025 that just have not performed up to that level. For starters, Chase Briscoe, who's getting his best opportunity driving this 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, replacing Martin Truex Jr. He started off the year strong, winning the pole at Daytona, finished in 4th, but since then it's been a real roller coaster. He had that huge penalty from Daytona, which he was able to get overturned. I mean, that's a victory in itself. But then he has only one finish inside the top 15 since then. Now, you can look at Las Vegas, where he turned what could have been a real big negative into a positive. He lost a tire after a pit stop, which ultimately led to him losing 4 laps due to a 2-lap penalty and then working on the car. He was able to rebound from that, make up every single lap, and finish in 17th place. While it wasn't a top 10 or a huge points day for Briscoe, it was still good to see this team claw back, fight back, and stay in it to be able to get a 17th place finish. With Briscoe, and I've said this before about Tyler Reddick and when he made the move from RCR to 2311, and it can take a little while for drivers who make the move from teams that maybe don't have the week in and week out speed of others. It takes some time for the drivers to adjust when they go to some of these top tier teams like a Hendrick or a 2311 or a Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, granted, I know Tyler Reddick won early with 2311, and with these next-gen cars, they're supposed to be on a more equal playing field, but there is a difference between how these cars perform. I mean, you look at how SHR was running there at the end of their run compared to Joe Gibbs Racing. I mean, just because it's supposed to be an equal playing field, it isn't always. These teams are always trying to find ways to make their cars better and faster. Then you have Bubba Wallace, Eric Jones, drivers who have shown speed early in the season, but just don't have the finishes to back them up, much like Austin Cindric. Bubba started off with a 3rd place starting spot at Daytona, led 18 laps, but got caught up in a big crash. He turned around, was able to get a top 10 at Atlanta, and that's been his only one so far this year. And the past couple weeks, he's had good runs spoiled due to crashes, especially on Sunday where he was a top 5, top 10 looking car. He led 20 laps, and instead he gets caught up in the big crash that took out Ryan Blaney, and that derailed any strong run he'd have. But the growth is still there for Bubba Wallace. You keep seeing him improve and get better at Circuit of the Americas. Road courses has always been his weak spot, his worst tracks to go to. He goes out and qualifies second next to his teammate Tyler Reddick, leads a few laps. He did finish in 20th, but still Bubba continues to show improvement. And for Erik Jones, he has started in the top 5 in 3 of the 5 races run so far this season. So this team, Legacy Motor Club, both he and John Hunter Nemechek, they have greatly improved their performance from how they were last season and even the year before that. And while John Hunter Nemechek, he's been able to translate that into better runs on Sunday, Erik Jones has yet to really find a way to make that happen on Sundays, comparing qualifying to races. He has yet to finish inside the top 10. His best finish this year is 12th at Daytona. If they can find some way to get that to roll over from qualifying day to race day, then Erik Jones can quickly join his teammate John Hunter Nemechek in that rise through the standings. And look, we got Darlington coming up soon. We all know how good Erik Jones is there, so that could be a place to keep an eye on Erik Jones in at least a dark horse position. Now, you do have a few drivers who are the complete opposite of the drivers that I just mentioned. These guys, they're struggling with speed and performance. They're not showing a whole lot of promise so far this season, and that would be Brad Keselowski, Ty Gibbs, and even SVG to a certain level. Starting with Ty Gibbs, he's the biggest one on this list because last year at this time, he looked like a guy that could win any given week. He was up near the top 5, in the top 5 of the point standings, and seemed to be well on his way to becoming a Cup Series star. Instead, he ended last season poorly, and it's just rolled over into 2025. He only has one finish inside the top 30 in the last 10 races. So something's going on inside that 54 team. Not sure what it is. That we know they did have the crew chief swap. I don't know if that really plays a factor into it, given how these problems started late last year. But for Gibbs, that's the one I would be the most panicked about, just simply because the speed just has not been there for so long for this 54 car. Then for Keselowski, last year was kind of a resurgence year for Brad, but this year, again, he's another driver that just does not seem to have much to battle with when going against the rest of the field. Now, Chris Buescher and Ryan Preece, they have had good, strong runs. They have shown promise through the first 5 races so far this year. But Keselowski, he just has not been very relevant through the first 5 races. Now, he did come away with an 11th place finish at Las Vegas, so maybe the tide is turning for Keselowski there, but he currently sits 30th in points, so he's in a pretty deep hole. But finishing 11th at Las Vegas, that will help him start to dig his way out of it, get a better spot in qualifying, which gives him a better shot at starting up front and can lead to better finishes. Shane Van Gisbergen, you got to give him a pass because he is running his first full-time season. So it's going to be a learning year for Shane Van Gisbergen. And a lot of his problem is he's been caught up in crashes the past 2 weeks. He did get a 6th place finish at COTA, and we know he's going to be a factor at the upcoming road courses races this season. It's just going to be a matter of taking what you can learn from these trips to tracks like Phoenix and Las Vegas, Atlanta, Daytona, where you're going to go back to in the second half of the year. And that's where you're going to really have to look at Shane Van Gisbergen and how he's performing, is you want to see him take a positive step forward and have better results than he had in the first trips there. Now, of course, when you have surprise drivers struggling and not really performing up to their usual self on the racetrack, there are surprise drivers to take their place in the point standings and in the finishing order. And a few of those drivers would be John Hunter Nemechek, Ryan Preece, Riley Herbst, as well as Ricky Stenhouse Jr. For John Hunter Nemechek, as I mentioned earlier, talking about his teammate Erik Jones, this Legacy Motor Club team looks completely different from how it has the past couple of years. While Erik Jones has shown the speed on qualifying, John Hunter Nemechek has been showing the speed during the races. He already has a top 5 and 2 top 10s on the year, which is one more top 5 than he had last season, and half of the top 10s he had last year as well. So he could easily wind up with quite a few more top 10s than he did last year. But even in those races where he hasn't finished in the top 10, he's still right there in the top 15, top 20. So a complete flip of what we saw last year from Legacy Motor Club. And I think a big part of that is Travis Mack, who was the crew chief for Daniel Suarez at Trackhouse. He got Suarez his first career victory. And I think that has been a positive addition for John Hunter Nemechek this year. And then we have Ryan Preece, who I predicted when he made the move to RFK Racing that we could see him be a first-time winner this year. And while it didn't start off too well with his big crash at Daytona, he has shown good speed through a majority of this season, especially Sunday at Las Vegas, where he finished in third, tying his career best finish. And if they had had another caution, who knows? He could have been right there in the thick of things for the race win. And this is coming off a race at Phoenix, which I think is probably the best race he's driven of his career. They played the strategy smart with the tires that NASCAR brought, led 34 laps. And if things had went a little bit different with how the cautions fell, he could have been right up there racing for the race win as well last week. And we could be talking about him instead of Josh Berry. I still like Ryan Preece to get his first career win this year. And I think the tracks to watch him at this year are still New Hampshire and Nashville, along with Martinsville. So who knows, with the way his season has started, he has more momentum right now than he has before in his Cup Series career. We could see him get a win here before the summer stretch begins. Now, for Riley Herbst and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., they have definitely been a lot more consistent this year than I think many expected. For Stenhouse, he does have one top 5 at Atlanta. Outside of that, you can find him right there at the edge of the top 20. He's only finished outside the top 20 once this season so far, and that was 21st last week at Phoenix. For Riley Herbst, kind of the same deal. He stayed in the 17th spot the first 3 races of the year. He did finish 37th after the crash at Phoenix, but came back with a 19th place finish at Vegas. So those two drivers are definitely doing a great job for their teams. While I wouldn't be ready to pencil them in as drivers to watch for race wins outside of super speedways, especially for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., is still a strong start, especially to the Cup Series career for Riley Herbst. I think it would take a huge upset for him to get the win this year. But if he is able to stay on the path he's on right now, keep getting these top 20s, top 15s, a top 10 here and there, you can definitely build up your momentum and confidence where he could go for a race win next season. Now, moving on to the Xfinity and Truck Series races from Las Vegas, starting with the Xfinity Series, Justin Allgaier get his first win of the season. He led 102 laps in the race. That is back-to-back weeks where he's led over 100 laps. Only this week he was able to get the victory. So his championship defense is definitely starting off strong. You had Eric Almirola finishing in second. And now that his top 3 finishes in all 3 races that he has run so far in a part-time schedule for Joe Gibbs Racing. And looking at how he is performing in these starts with Joe Gibbs, both this year and last year, I got to wonder, are any tires being kicked on possibly bringing this guy back full-time? Because with Joe Gibbs Racing and your other cars, you have young drivers, up-and-comers, who are wanting to go to the Cup Series level. And Eric Almirola would fill the role of veteran who's been to the Cup Series. He's won races up there. Being the mentor role, he could fill that perfectly while also going out and competing for championships. Now, he may have no interest in that. Joe Gibbs may have no interest in bringing him back full-time. For Eric, he may be fine running a handful of races each year, competing for wins, and then getting to go spend time with his family. But if you're a car owner, if you're able to, I would at least gauge and see how interested he would be coming back for a full-time schedule and say, look, yes, the Xfinity Series schedule is long, but it's not as long as the Cup Series. But the driver that's really I'm wanting to focus on is the third-place finisher, Jesse Love. In my podcast preview episode for the Xfinity Series season, and I know I'm referencing that episode a lot, but it seems kind of relevant with what we had going on at Las Vegas this weekend. Jesse Love was my driver to watch for the championship. And as of right now, he is still my favorite for the championship, at least to make it to the championship 4. He won at Daytona. He has 4 top 10s this year out of 5 races. He picked up right where he left off in the end of last year. The main thing, and this will be something to look at down the road, is the situation with the Richard Childress Racing Cup Series cars. It can go a couple of different ways, but if Richard Childress or Austin Dillon, whoever's over the decision-making at that point, they have to choose between Jesse Love or Austin Hill, there's no clear-cut pick there. Both drivers would be great additions to the Cup team. Of course, there is a scenario where both could get called up, but that's going to depend on if Richard Childress Racing can hold on to Jesse Love. Because if he keeps performing like this, other teams are going to be calling, trying to pull him up to the Cup Series and get him in their car. I think a lot of it comes down to how much longer will Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon keep doing this. Right now, Kyle Busch, he seems to be performing back to his regular level. If he didn't have the tire issues he did at Las Vegas, he could have been right up there running for the win. Austin Dillon is still struggling. He could be, rumored to be the guy that take over the day-to-day operations for Richard Childress Racing when that time comes. And with his struggles on the track, could that come sooner rather than later? So it's going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds over the next couple of years. But if you're able to hold on to Jesse Love and Austin Hill and bring them up into your Cup Series team, with the struggles RCR has had with consistency, these are two guys that can really turn that ship around and turn you into championship contenders, I think. Now, I'm going to kind of do like I did with the Cup Series, but looking at drivers who are performing well. And I don't want to look at the drivers who are necessarily struggling. Instead, I want to look at the positive. I mentioned Harrison Burton earlier when discussing Josh Berry and how he has turned that AM Racing team around. Granted, it's not just him, but the performance on the track you can't ignore. He has done a complete 180 with this team and how they looked last year with all the drivers they had in that car. He's constantly in the top 15, top 10. So Harrison able to, I think, shed some of the talk of him being the sole problem with the Wood brothers last year. Also, you have Sam Mayer, who has 4 top 10s this year. He's off to the best start of his career. You can look at his average finish and all and see that. And I think that isn't going to change anytime soon with Sam Mayer. We could be seeing a career breakout year for Mayer, and possibly you'll start hearing talks about when he will make the move to Cup. Taylor Gray with the 54 Joe Gibbs Racing car. I've honestly been surprised with how fast he has caught on. He has 3 top 10s so far this year, but when he left the Truck Series last year, going into 2025, he was at his best by the end of last season, and I figured that momentum would help some, but it would take him some time to really be able to get a hold of these Xfinity Series cars. Instead, he's come out and been pretty solid in the races so far this year. And then there's Parker Retzlaff. While he doesn't have any top 10s, he also did not qualify for COTA. I have noticed this 4 car up front a lot more. Like Cindric, I think the speed is there with the car. I think the driver is where he needs to be. The finishes just aren't showing up yet for just how strong he is. Now, moving on to the Truck Series, Corey Heim, he was able to get his second race win of the year, but this is more about the race that got away from Tyler Ankrum. Tyler led the second most laps. He won stage 2. Then he goes out and he has a bad pit stop going into the final stage, putting him in the eye of the storm of the field. He gets called up 4 wide, makes some contact with some teammates, damages the truck, and the team really had to go to work on it. But in the last, for that to happen so late in the race, for him to be able to claw back and get a top 10 finish, I think it shows just how strong Ankrum was on Friday night. And honestly, the bad part of it is how truly a win did slip away from him on Friday night. I still think he gets to victory lane this year. And if I'm looking at the schedule on which track I think he could get away with a win, Nashville is the one I circle, given how he performed at Las Vegas. Also, another driver, Lane Riggs, he may have finally gotten mile and a half figured out. He made an incredible save late in the race, battling for second, was able to hold on for 5th. The key thing for Lane, and again, going back to my preview of the upcoming season podcast episode, Lane needed to figure out mile and a halves to become a true championship contender. He showed how strong he was last year, especially when the playoffs started at short tracks. Now he is able to go out, get a solid top 5 at a mile and a half, really follow up from his second place finish at Kansas after the playoffs started last year. So he may have this figured out, and that could be trouble for the rest of the Truck Series field. The most surprising driver so far in the Truck Series is Gio Ruggiero. He finished second in his debut at Daytona. He has top 15 finishes in the other 2 races so far, sits 8th in the point standings. And after listening to Door Bumper Clear, where they had Slugger Labby on, who's now with Toyota Racing Development, Gio is going to be a driver to watch this weekend at Homestead-Miami. They mentioned how he just did a test at Homestead where he ran 342 laps in one day. So I got to think that's going to be a big plus for him going into this race at Homestead. Now, going away from the drivers for a quick second, looking at the Truck Series overall, they have really change their perception to other fans. After checkered flag fell at Las Vegas, that now made 17 straight races without an overtime finish for the Craftsman Truck Series. The most in series history was 20. So this series has went from really being a joke of the NASCAR world with how many wrecks they'd have, the messy endings, young drivers being over-aggressive and running through one another, to now being the series to really watch next to the Xfinity Series. I mean, you look at the race itself at Las Vegas, especially there at the end, these guys were on the edge of control. Lane Riggs was just a small example of these guys that were getting loose, out of shape, but were able to hold on to it, and they put on one heck of a race, especially at the end on Friday night. So now NASCAR heads to Homestead-Miami Speedway, arguably the best race on the schedule. With the different lanes you can run up there, it really puts on entertaining races. For the Cup Series, the driver I think is going to be the one to beat is Tyler Reddick. He is wanting to get back into victory lane, something fierce. He has not been proud or happy with his performance so far this year, even though he's been pretty good. Homestead has been a good track for him across all three series. He won a couple Xfinity Series championships here. He won this race last year in a great battle with Ryan Blaney. I think Tyler Reddick, this is going to be his race to win. On the Xfinity Series side, I'm looking at Austin Hill and Sam Mayer as the two favorites for this race. Both have won the last two races at Homestead, Miami. Neither have finished outside the top 10 in their 3 career starts at Homestead. And with the speed Sam Mayer has shown so far this year, I would give the edge to him to get the race win. On the Truck Series side, obviously, Corey Heim, you have to mention anywhere the Truck Series goes, he is going to be the favorite. But don't sleep on Grant Enfinger, who won this race last year. This seems to be a pretty good track for him. He'll be, I want to call him a dark horse driver, but he'll be someone to keep an eye on to possibly sneak in there and get the win. But if I had to give the edge to anybody, I would give it to Ty Majeski. He is another driver in 4 races at Homestead. He has yet to finish outside the top 10. He won here in 2022, finished second in this race last year. I think Ty Majeski goes out and gets his first win of the season at Homestead. And that'll wrap up today's episode of 3 Wide. As always, thank y'all for joining and listening along. If you haven't done it already, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening to this podcast from. If you're on YouTube and you hit that subscribe button, you will get notified when my new Drivers to Watch list drops every week, where we look over the favorites for the Cup Series race. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week, enjoys this week's action from Homestead-Miami Speedway. It's bound to be a good weekend, and I will see y'all next time here on 3 Wide.